Hey guys, it's Brenton here in the kitchen. Tonight we're going to be making some homemade tomato sauce. Okay, so let's get started with the ingredients. We're going to need some olive oil, a can of tomato paste, 1 can of San Marzano tomatoes, and so this is 28 ounces, and this is the brand I'm going to use. There are plenty of brands out there, but I prefer this one. We have some crushed red pepper, some salt, some dry oregano leaves, and we also have some basil leaves. I'm going to go with the fresh ones here, but if you don't have fresh basil, you can just use dry leaves. And same goes for oregano. It's just a matter of if you want to use fresh or dry leaves. So I'm going to be using the dried oregano with the fresh basil. But yeah, the dried ones are optional if you have them. I have 1 bay leaf. I have some celery, coarse garlic. So the basil and the garlic are going to be the staples to go with the tomatoes. All the rest of the veggies are optional, but this is what I use. So I use celery. I use 1 carrot chopped up. I use a yellow onion. So this is a big one, so I'm probably going to use half of that. And I put in some bell pepper. So I have a red bell pepper and an orange bell pepper. I'm going to do it in this Dutch oven here. Okay, let's get started. Okay, so one more quick note on the ingredients. I missed a very important ingredient, and that's sugar. So I have about 1/4 of a cup of sugar here that I'm going to add later. And what that does is it cuts some of the acidity in the sauce. So I think most people do that, but it is optional. It's an important ingredient that I use. So what I've been doing the last few minutes is prepping the veggies. I got the tomatoes out of the can in a bowl here, and I'll start mixing those up with my hands in a minute. And I have some of the garlic and basil here in the bay leaf. We're going to need that a little bit later. So why don't we get started on the stove top? So I have the Dutch oven with some olive oil in the pan, and have all the other veggies. And again, most of these are optional. You are going to want a half an onion, but the carrots and celery and bell peppers, that's optional. It's just really up to you. Okay, so I just added those in, and I'm going to put the lid back on, and you can mix that up with a wooden spoon. You want to give it about 10 to 15 minutes to really soften up the veggies, and then I'll check back in when we add the garlic and basil. Okay, so briefly I want to show you what I'm going to do with the tomatoes. I'm just going to take them and mix them up with my hands. I'm just using one hand right now because I'm filming. But you just want to mix those in for a few minutes. Just really make sure you squeeze the tomatoes through. And I should say this particular brand that I'm using, Acento, I think it has basil in it already, but I like basil a lot, so I'm going to add some of this fresh basil as well. So that's just something to keep in mind. Depending on the brand of San Marzano tomatoes you buy, just keep an eye out if it already has basil in it, if you want to add that extra basil to it. So the veggies are going right now. I'm mixing the tomatoes up, and I'll check back in a few minutes when we add some of the other ingredients into the pan on the stove. Okay, so about 15 minutes has gone by, and you can see the veggies have softened up. So what I'm going to do now is add the garlic, the basil, and bay leaf. And I have a little pocket down there with the olive oil, so I'm just going to mix that in with the oil and juice from the veggies. I'm going to give it about a minute, so the garlic and the basil cooks in, and I'm going to check back in with you then. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is add the seasoning. I'm going to go with some salt. And if you watched my videos before, you know I don't typically measure out all the seasoning. It's kind of at your own discretion, but I tend to go heaviest here with the oregano. So right now it's just the crushed red pepper, and I'm going to go heavier with the oregano. And of course, as I mentioned in the beginning, you could go with fresh oregano along with the fresh basil if you have it. All right, now this is smelling really good. All right, let's see. So next I'm just going to give it a quick stir with my wooden spoon. Yeah, all those flavors and spices are really fusing together, really smelling good. Okay, now I get some tomato paste. So this is about 3 ounces or half a can. And of course, our San Marzano tomatoes. That's going to be one of the last steps. And I should mention, what I just did when I took the lid off is I lowered the heat. So I had it at a medium heat with the veggies at first for the first 10-15 minutes, and then I just lowered it down to low. And the last step is I'm going to add some sugar. And again, that's just to cut the acidity. I'm going to give it a stir just to make sure I get the sugar and the seasoning all mixed in with the tomatoes. Man, it smells good. All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lid back on, keep it at a low heat, and occasionally every 5 minutes or so, I'm going to come and stir it, stir the sauce. You can see heavy on the veggies here. Again, this is the way I like it. Have some optional stuff in here. You don't have to add all those bell peppers and carrots, etc. But that's just the way I like to do it. So yeah, I'll check back in a bit, see where it's at. But more or less, this is what we need to do to make the sauce, and now it's just a matter of waiting it out and letting it cook for a while. I'm going to let it sit here at a low heat for about an hour with the lid on. So just wrapping up the homemade tomato sauce. I left it on the stove for about an hour with the lid on, and every 5 or 10 minutes I would stir it, and it was at a very low heat. If your burner runs pretty hot, you probably want to leave the lid off. But main idea is you want to stir it every few minutes and cook it for about an hour. And what I did was actually made chicken parm tonight, so I'm making a second video on that. But yeah, just to show you, I have some spaghetti here, and this is what our sauce looks like. You can see it's quite thick, heavy on the veggies. Again, I know that may not be typical, but that's the way I like it. I like having those extra veggies in there. And please check out this video, like and subscribe. And if you're interested in how to make chicken parm, please check out my other video where I featured this sauce.